In Business Central, you can create as many companies as you want. And for instance, if you are setting up a new company, you might want to copy the company to test it before you actually post all your openings. From the menu, you will search for companies to find a list of all the companies you have added in your Business Central solution. And from here, you can just select the specific company you want to copy from. And from the process, you can select which new company name you want to give it. For instance, a test company, if that's what you want to do, and you just press OK. And after a while, the company will be copied and it will appear on the list. You can now open the company, you can post in it, you can test whatever you like, and you can leave it here. Or when you're done, you could, of course, delete the company again from the same menu, going into the company, pressing delete. Just be aware that you cannot delete a company that you're actually in. So now I'm in the Killermoose company and I can delete the test company that I just made if I want to. Be aware, of course, not to delete companies that you shouldn't delete. When you're ready to start the go live process in your new Business Central solution, you need to do openings, of course, on all the finance stuff and on your inventory. And there's a strategy for doing that, and I'll just explain that shortly in here. So first of all, let's look into our chart of accounts. And if I looked also into my inventory, I could see that my inventory would be 0 as well. If I look into my entries and remove the filters, I can see I have nothing here in my general ledger inventories. Now what I want to do is two things. First of all, I want to open lots of finance stuff and I want to open my inventory. Let's start on the inventory because that's the simple one. It's only about items. So here I created an inventory journal for opening my inventory. I entered my item numbers and quantity, and when I post that, I will create my inventory opening. This will also create, of course, some entries in my GL, and I need to reset those. So if I go into my general journals, we can look into all the stuff that we have to do in here, and I will show this in separate videos. But for the inventory, I will have an inventory opening, which is meant to reset the inventory postings done in the GL. So with these quantities here, I will reset the inventory that I just created. And likewise, on all the other entries that are not the final opening, meaning on my bank, on my VAT, on my customers, I would like to do postings. And the strategy for doing this, the easiest way, is to create my customer as the one side of the posting, and then to select my balance account as the same account that the customer entry goes into. This way I can do all my openings without creating anything in my chart of account, meaning of course I'm creating a lot of GL entries, but I also create the opposite entry in the same way. This means when I'm done with all my different openings on VAT, vendors, customers, assets, etc., I can do my final general ledger opening, which of course should be the opening that I want to have when I go live. So strategy is to create all the separate entries and all the different tables, and then the general ledger opening in the end.
In this video, I will go through how to create new users in the Business Central. So first I have to find my users, and it's a user list. And when getting here, I can see that I'm the only one that is represented, and I need to import some new users. I do that in the process and get users from Office 365. The Business Central is built up in connection with the rest of Microsoft products. On your Office 365, you need to have an account where you have a Business Central license. So every user with a Business Central license in your Office 365 for Microsoft will be imported into your Business Central. And I got some new users, some of my colleagues.
In order to be able to send emails from Business Central, an email or more email accounts needs to be configured in Business Central. This is done under Email Accounts. To add, we have the possibility to use 3 different types of email accounts. And to add new, we go under New, Add new email account. To learn more about email accounts and setup and which permissions that are needed for the individual account types, please read Microsoft's guidelines under Learn More. This will take you to Microsoft Docs, where you can read a lot about required permissions and how to do these tasks. And we press Next. Now we can choose between the 3 account types: a Microsoft 365 shared mailbox, current user, or an SMTP setup. Choose the account type and fill in the fields required. In the flow, we will ask which one to be used as a default sender address for all users, but you can change this by marking a line, process, and set as default. Now all users will be using this email address as a default when sending emails.
When I go live with my new Business Central solution, of course, I would like to import my open customer ledger entry to be able to apply them later on when they are paying. Therefore, I will go into my general journal, and the strategy for doing this opening would be that I will post my customer on one hand and the customer account on the other hand, meaning that the chart of account goes into 0. So first of all, let's just look at the chart of account shortly to see that we have no entries in here as for now. So if I dive down into my entries, nothing is posted in here. Let's go back again. And now I want to enter all the lines with my customers, and I want to enter my document number manually, whereas in my batch name, I would suggest that you create a batch name specifically for this. I've made one called customer opening. I'll get back to that, but just let me show you here in the manual batch name that I'm in now. If there's a number series here, I will remove the number series, and I'm not forced to use a specific number series. So in this case, we have no number series. I can enter my document type as being an invoice. If it's a normal customer ledger entry, I can enter my document number, meaning my posted sales invoice number or whatever it is that I have here. I can select my account type being a customer and the account number as the customer. And I could use the description field maybe for my order number. In this way, I have both my original sales order number from the old system and my document number being my posted document. You just have to be aware here that this description is the field used on the entries and also the field, the information used if you make a bank statement, so the customer will actually see this description. Then you will enter the currency code typically, and of course the amount for the open customer entry. And if you use dimension, in this case I use project code, you can enter dimension code or whatever dimension you have to enter them as well here. And you have to be aware of if you're doing a combined customer ledger entry, this should be of course per dimension. And last of all, I would like to enter my balance account number. And as I said in the beginning, I would like my balance account number to be my customer account. So therefore I have to search for my customer posting group where I can see my customer account. Here we are. And I can see I have only one receivables account here for all my customer posting groups. So therefore I'll just enter that receivable account here. And now I'm done. I can fill in all the line in this way. Of course, if I have a line with a credit memo or a customer ledger entry, which is a credit memo, I will do exactly the same exercise, but of course as a credit memo. Now I've cheated a little here. So if I look into my customer opening journal, I've entered this already, of course, filling out the document type, customers, the description, the currencies, the amounts, and the balance account and project codes. So now I'm able to post this journal. Here we are. And if I look into my chart of account now, in here, and I dive down into my entries and remove the filter, I can see all the GL entries that it made here, all on the same GL account number, with the balance account being my customer number out here. And if I go into, I can see this is only one account here, 85,005. And if I drill down to that or search for that, I will see that the balance is 0, which it was meant to be. Whereas if I go into my customer ledger entry, in here, I can see that it created all my open customer ledger entries just like I have expected, with all the correct amounts. So in this way, I get my open customer ledger entries in here, and I still have a chart of account which is 0, so it's possible for me later on to post a complete opening balance.
In this video, I will go through assigning user rights for the persons that work in your database. So first I have to find my users. And then on this one, I would like to edit the user rights. I scroll down and I can see right now I have a user permission set called basic on this user. But in fact, I have two opportunities to add permission sets in this form. So I have the user groups, which is a group of user permission sets that are combined for the role that you have. So let's have a look up, and you can see I have like administrator, 365 premium, the finance department, and stuff like that. That's the full list. So it's more like role-based. You can work here, and down here on the user permission sets is all the sets that Microsoft deliver as a standard. So right now my user only has the permission set just called basic. So I just want to add another permission set for this one user, and I want to add the troubleshoot tools. So I just select this one, and I do now have troubleshoot tools. It could be that I said that my user are allowed to have a basic role in all the companies in my database, but the troubleshoot tools is only allowed in one of my companies. And then I can select from my company list, and I can choose the company where my user is allowed to work in. So basic in all companies, but only troubleshoot tools in the one company called SCB.
With Business Central, it's possible to use different sender addresses for different types of documents. This we control in email scenarios. Here we can see the different email accounts set up in this Business Central. Right now, all emails will be sent from the default account, but it's possible to assign scenarios to other email addresses. We do so by email accounts. We do so by marking the account and press Assign Scenarios. And now I can choose which types of documents I would like to send from this address. And I can add as many scenarios as I would like to. If I want to unassign a scenario from a specific email address, I mark it and press Unassign. I also have the possibility to reassign it to another email account. This functionality makes it possible to have default senders from different groups when creating emails and sending them from Business Central.
When I'm ready to go live with my new Business Central solution, of course I would like to import my open vendor ledger entry, unless I've posted them in the old system, all of them. So if I have outstanding entries, I will enter them here in my system. First of all, let's look into the chart of accounts to see that we have no postings here as for now. So this is a very clean database here and it's ready to post on. I can see here I have no entries when removing the filters in the entries. And I want to create my open vendor ledger entries in here. I've already entered vendors and customers and items, etc. So I'm ready for my opening balances. And I will do my vendor opening in a general journal. And I'll just run through the fields you need to fill in. I have used the manual journal for the example here. And as you can see, I have no number series entered on the manual journal in the batch to make sure I can enter whatever document number I prefer. So I select here an invoice if it's a vendor invoice we're talking about. I select the document number from my posted document in my old system. And I will select the vendor account. I'll be a type vendor and the vendor account here. And I can use the description here for my internal order number if I want to save that. And that's part of my old entry to have that history. So this is my order number. This was my posted document number. And I can use the external document number as the external document number coming from the vendor invoice that you should already have in your old system. Then I can enter a currency code, of course, like this. And whatever amount is on the vendor entry. Oops, I'll try that again, like this. And if I'm using dimension, I could enter here project code or whatever dimension I'm using to have them in the new system. And as a balance account, I'll select my balance account, GL account, of course. And as a balance account, I need to find my vendor account because I want the chart of accounts to go to 0. So I will go into my vendor posting group to find the correct account in here, my payables account, and I can see that here, and it's the same on all my vendor posting groups here, so I don't have to be distinguish between those. And now I'm done. I can post this line and it will go into 0 in my chart accounts and it will create a vendor ledger entry. And of course I have cheated a little for this scenario, so I've already made an GL journal with all my vendor openings. And as you can see here, you can have an invoice, you can have credit memos, of course, and you need to set the sign correctly on all the lines, dimensions, amounts, etc. This is ready to post, and I will just post this one. Here we are, and it should now have created my GL entries here on my vendor account, as you can see here, and it's only posting into my vendor account, and the balance account will be the vendor out here. And if I go into my journal and look at my vendor account, I can see that it has posted nothing in here. It's actually, of course, it posted everything, but it goes total into 0 that I like to do, so I can post my opening balance afterwards. And if I'm looking into my vendor ledger entries in here, I can see that it created all my open vendor ledger entries correctly. Some of them are due, therefore they're red, and everything is now correct for my GL opening in my chart of accounts.
In this video, I will go through how you manage the permission sets in Business Central. So first I have to find the permission sets. And the permission sets are actually the core permissions in Business Central. So every user in Business Central needs to have a minimum of permission sets to work in the database. So this is a permission set list, and you can see we have permission sets that could be user-defined, extensions, can be system. And the only thing you can make corrections into is if they are user-defined. So let's go into a user-defined permission sets and look into it. And I can press the permissions. So in here, a permission set is a list of table data that you as a user have access to. And you can see in the first column, it is table data, and I have the table ID, and I have the table name. And then I have some different permissions. I have a read permission, insert, modify, delete, and execute. So these are the permissions that I can work with in the table data. So if I have an insert permission, that means that I can insert new entries in that table. And modify, I can modify existing entries in the table. And delete, that means I'm allowed to delete whatever there might be of entries. And in fact, permissions are only built up with the data because the data are the things that are important in Business Central. Down here I have a table, report, code unit, XML port, and so on, and they all have object ID 0. That means I have access to all reports and all tables and all stuff like that. And that's not important because the data are stored in the table data. The table data are the one that tells you what you actually can see. So if you have access to all reports, but you have no data that you can see in the reports, they are not for any use anyway. So you can just add new tables in here, and you can just delete tables, and you can set permissions to whatever you like. If the permission is indirect, that means that you as an end user not have direct access to that table, but you have access via another table that you have access to. So indirect is a table that have access to this table that you have access to from your permissions somewhere else.
You can control in Business Central who can see the email sent from Business Central, both in the email outbox and in send mails. We configure this in user email policies. As a standard, users are set up to view if access to all related records, meaning that if the user have access to view data in the records which are connected to the email, they can see it. But there are other options. We can choose that users should only be able to see their own emails, or they can see all emails, or they can view an email if they have access to any related records and not all related records related to an email. As long as the user ID is blank, it is applied to all users. But I can also do it for some users and say, this user here can only view his or hers own emails. So we can differentiate between users and what they can see.
In my new Business Central, I would like to create inventory openings, and I will normally do that before creating my GL opening or my GL balance, so I can check that everything goes into 0 and I can open my balance normally. With the inventory opening, I will have to use the item journal. I will have to reset the GL with my general journal. So first of all, let's look at my items. As you can see here, we already have the items in the system. The inventory is 0 on all items. And if I look into my chart of accounts, just to see where we are, I can see that we have no entries in here. If I drill down into the entries, nothing is in here. And I could also filter, and I will do that on my entries, my value being different from 0, which of course is for now no accounts, just to show you what is going on in here. So first of all, we will go into the item journal. Here we are, and I will open my inventory using a positive adjustment, a document number for opening, for instance. I could enter here, open item or inventory or whatever I would like to call it. I enter my item number, my location code, the quantity I want to open, and of course I will create several lines on the same item if I have different location codes. And be aware here that I cannot change my unit amount, because I know this, in this case, my item is a standard cost item. I will get a validation result. But on the other hand, if I have opened on another item, my bike, for instance, on the same location, whatever quantity, I might be able to change the unit amount, because this is a first in, first out handled item. So if it's a first in, first out or FIFO item, you need to be aware to enter the unit amount correctly. And likewise, of course, if I use my snack bar item here that I know is an lot handled item, I also would need to enter my item tracking from my line, item tracking line, and I need here to set my, in this case, a lot number and whatever expiration date goes for this item, like this, for instance, to make sure that everything goes correctly. Now I could post this line with those quantities. And of course, I have cheated a little and created another journal with my inventory opening, just to show you here all the quantities I like to post. So this is my full inventory, and I can post this when I'm ready to do that, like this. And this will put all my item on inventory on the correct location, correct batch numbers, etc. And we're all happy here. But in the Chart of accounts, as I can see here, it created, of course, a lot of adjustment on the inventory, and it created here all the inventory accounts. And I would like to open that with my opening balances as the very last thing. So therefore I will reset all those postings. So I have to write them down, all of them, to see all the different figures, and then to go into my general journal in here. And if you're doing this as an opening thing, you could, in your live company, when you do a test, you could write down those numbers, and then I think you should create an opening journal for inventory. So I've cheated already here and made this ready with all the correct amounts, so I can just post them here. Be aware, of course, of the signs, etc. So when I post these quantities here, or these amounts in my opening journal, the chart of accounts go back to 0. So now I have chart of accounts, which is reset, ready for an opening balance, and I have all my inventory filled in, all my item ledger entry correctly with lot numbers, etc.
In this video, I will go through how you manage the user groups in Business Central. So you just have to find the user groups. Each user group are built up of different permission sets. So you can see I'm on the D365 accountants and I have the permission sets to the right in my fact box, or I can press the user group permission sets and see the same list. And for example, if I choose administrator and I look upon the user group permission sets, it's quite a more long list. In here, I can also see which members do I have of this selected user group, and the users are shown per company in the database. I can also see the user by user group, which gives me a full view of which users have which user groups. And in here, actually, I can check mark if some of my users should have some different user groups. It's just an easy way to give permissions to the users from the backend. So now we can see on this view again that the administrator now has JNI and AB Super as members of this user group.
When email accounts has been set up in Business Central, you can send mail straight out of Business Central. From a document, example a sales order, I go into print and send and say email confirmation. And now the email dialog opens, and I can write my message here on this. And I can write a message here in the message box. And I send the email by pressing send email.
Often we see that when customers go live in new Business Central solutions, they will settle all the VAT in the old system to avoid opening VAT entries in the new system. But sometimes it's not possible and you would like to have open VAT entries imported in your new system. And I'll show you how to do that, to create VAT entries and still to simmer out the chart of accounts so you can do a full opening balance later. First of all, let's look into the chart of accounts in here, just to see that in this scenario we have no entries in the system until now whatsoever. And I'll post my VAT entries from a general journal in here. So I'll just enter the VAT more or less directly, but before I'm doing that, I want to tell you what the scenario is. So let's look into Excel. Here we are. So these are my open VAT entries from the old system, and what I'm going to report when I settle my VAT is the combination of my VAT business posting group and VAT product posting group. And basically I could just collapse all the entries with the same combination if I want to, instead of making all those entries here. So I could just take the base amount on all those ones and collapse to one base amount, and it should calculate, of course, automatically the VAT amount for me. Back in Business Central, I will enter here my journal for my document number VAT open, for instance, and I'll select my VAT sales account number. If it's the sales VAT I'm entering first, and I need to find that account, and I can find that in the VAT posting setup. And while I'm in here, I could just explain you a conflict in here we have to handle afterwards. So here's my combination of VAT business posting group and VAT product posting group, and I can see here my sales account and my purchase account. And what I have to be aware of is the combination of EU and VAT 25. For an example, we have the reverse charge account being another account than my sales and purchase account. So that will create a deviation we have to handle later on. But these are my two accounts that I have to use. So on my journal, I will enter my sales VAT account like this. And we'll just insert the line. Here we are. And then I will enter my general posting type being sale, because it's sales VAT I'm going to post here. My VAT amount, which is the base amount on the open entry. And if you don't have the base amount, you'll just have to calculate it from the VAT amount. So if it's a VAT 25%, you'll have to multiply it by 5. If it's a 12.5%, you'll have to multiply it by 10, as an example. That's a little calculation you can enjoy yourself with. Here, my balance account is the same account. So I like the GL balance to go into 0 while creating those VAT interest, because I like to open the balance later on with one big journal. Now the remaining thing I need to do is on the right hand side in my general journal, I need to enter my VID business posting group and my VID product posting group in here. And this will automatically calculate my VAT amount. Now I've done this for all the lines, of course. I have cheated a little. So if I enter my journal here, VAT opening, I can see that I've made entries of sales and purchase on two different accounts, my sales VAT account, my purchase VAT account. And if I scroll right, I'll have all the amounts here. Be aware here that my combination of, for instance, export and VAT 25 has a VAT amount of 0, because there is no amount, but I still like the open entry because I have to settle all of my revenue creating VAT. And likewise here on my EU and VAT 25, I know that this line is going to create reverse charge posting, and I have to handle those afterwards. But in here, I just need to open them for now, meaning I will post this journal. Like this. When I go back now into my chart of accounts, I can see that it have created entries in here, and all the entries are on my VAT accounts, of course. But if I filter on my net change here being different from 0, I can see that it actually made this acquisition tax that I'm talking about from my reverse charge, and I like to zero those out so I can create a clean opening balance later on. Therefore, I will go into my general journal again, and I will just manually post this amount from one account to the other. When you're preparing your go live, you could just create journals for all this, as I've done here. So it's already created here, and you're ready to do a full posting when you get to the actual go live. So it's in here. I can just post this one like this. And now my scenario is that my chart of accounts is 0 all the way through. And if I look into my VAT entries in here, I can see that it created all my VAT entries as open entries that I'd like to settle later on.
This video you're going to see how we add a permission set to a user group. So just we have to find user groups. And the user groups is a collection of permission sets. If I want to, in my accountants, to add some more permission sets, I just go into the user group permission set, click on one more, and I can say they should also have that permission. So now the user group called accountants now have more permissions in Business Central.
In Business Central, we can see all sent mails for the system in Sent Mails. Please note that you need to have the right user policies set up in order to see all mails. But view another video regarding user mail policies. We search for sent mails. And can now see all the emails that have been sent from Business Central. We can open them and see what has been sent, and we can resend them, or we can edit and send them again. We can also stand on a posted document and see show source. That will tell us from where it came from. And we can open it.
When I'm going live with my new Business Central solution, I would like to have some open bank entries reflecting my amounts in the banks I have, but I'd still like to reset my chart of accounts to be sure that I can do a total opening later on. So if I go into my chart of accounts in here, I can see as for now I have no entries if I'm removing filters on all entries, so nothing is posted yet, like this. And when I want to open my bank, I go into a general journal in here. And it's very simple, just entering my document number, for instance, bank opening. I select my account type being my bank, and I can select whatever bank accounts I have. The quantity, the currency code comes automatically. I select the amount, my bank amount, and as a balance account, I will select the same bank account as this one is pointing to. Therefore, I need to look into my bank account posting groups. And here I can see that my local currency posting group is on this bank account here. So this way I will just reset the chart of accounts in the same posting. So this is the way I'm just filling it in, and I can do this per bank. And I've made this prepared already, of course, even though it's only 2 lines. So here we are with my banks, my amounts, my balance accounts for the 2 banks, and I'm ready to. And when I'm looking back into my chart of accounts here, I can see that it's still zero, but then I created bank entries here on my bank accounts, and they will have both entries, meaning they go into 0. So I'm ready to open my general ledger now.
Let's have a look at the email dialog. When I create a mail, I have some options. And let's start from the top in the email details. If I press show more, I get more fields. In the front button, my default email account or email set in scenarios will be used when creating this email. But I can choose from other email accounts as well by pressing here. And I can choose another email account that this should be sent from. Likewise, in the to address, I can choose another email address to send this email from. So here I can see on this contact for this customer, there are 2 contacts, and I can choose another one. I can set in a CC and a BCC address, and I can change in the subject. I can write a message in the email and use the functions to change the layout and the look of my text. Under attachment, I can manually add a file and upload it to the email, but I can also add it from a source. And this looks down on the attachment, on the actual order, and let me attach these relevant documents. And now this has been attached.
After doing all the openings in my new Business Central, except for my general ledger. I'm ready to do my general ledger opening. This means that if I look in my chart of accounts, I can see that my total net change here is 0. If I fill down all the lines, it will be 0. But if I go into my GL entries, I can see that I've made all my openings here on the VAT, the customer ledger, vendor ledger entry, the inventory, the bank, etc. But it all goes into 0. So if I'm filtering here on my net change here, I can see that my chart of accounts is now blank. This means I can create my opening. And I'm doing this, of course, in my general journal. And in here, I enter my document number, for instance, my GL opening. I enter my account number I want to post into, and my amount, of course, whatever that might be. And then I enter another new line with the new amount. I won't enter any balance of account, of course, because it needs to go into a total balance of 0 when I'm all done. And I've prepared an opening, of course, in here, my general ledger opening with all my accounts. And I can see here that the total balance is 0. And I could also reconcile already now that my customer accounts fits the amount on the customer ledger entry, my bank accounts fits the amount of my bank ledger entries, my inventory accounts total up to my inventory value, and my VAT accounts total up to the VAT. Normally I would just make a copy of this journal, of this company, to make a test company and post this so I can check that it actually reconciles correctly. In this scenario, in this video here, I will just post it like this. And now I've made my complete opening of my general journal. I can see here I have lots of stuff in here and everything should be correct. And the last thing I need to do now is to make sure that everything is reconciled correctly. And in this scenario, of course, as you can see, I posted into my revenue accounts and my cost accounts, whereas normally if you go live on the first of a year or a period, you will just open your balance account. But it's also possible, like I just did here, to open in the middle of your periods.
In this video, I will go through how to set up the changelog in Business Central. First, I will search for the changelog, and I'll go to the changelog setup. The changelog is a possibility to track any changes you have on specific tables in your system. So I'll go to the setup, and I will choose which table I want to do this setup in. And for example, if I go to my customer, I can make a log on insert, on modify, or on delete on the customer. So on insert, if ever I have a new customer that will be inserted, I would like to have some change logs. And I can use the change log on some fields or on all fields on the customer. In this case, I will just have some fields, and I will open the assist edit, and I will choose which fields I want to track on. So I want to track on the number, on the name, and on the address and the city. So in this case, if a new customer is inserted, then in the log, I will see the number, the name, the address, and the city. And in the same way, if there are any modifications or if someone in my company deletes a customer, I will see it in the log entry. So only thing I need now is to close, and I need to activate the changelog.
When you're all set to do the complete final postings on your go live in your Business Central, I would suggest that you make a copy of the company and make sure everything is correct by running through the complete flow. So in this video, I'll run through everything on my complete flow. So I've prepared everything. I'm ready to go live. I've made a copy of my company. I will go into my chart of accounts just to make sure that nobody posted anything, so we don't have any entries in here. I might also check my item ledger entries and VAT entries, bank entries, etc. So everything is clean, we're ready, and I'm about to test that everything is correct. So I will go into my item journal, and I've prepared an order for all this, so I'm so ready. In my item journal, I've already created my opening, and I've done that in all my journals, so I just need to post them. So I will post my item journal. And I'll suggest that you might want to delete your opening journals when you're done, so you don't have a lot of journals lying here for no need. So here is my item journal, and I can filter on my net change if I want to follow what I'm doing here. I can filter on that being different from 0. I can see now that my item journal made a lot of stuff here, of course, and I would have expected that. I can go into my general journals and post all my different journals in here. So I will start maybe with let's just take them one by one. My bank opening, post that to create the bank entries, and still it resets the chart of accounts. My customer openings, and I've tested all those separately, of course, before doing this exercise, so I know that this will all make the chart of accounts go back to 0. Therefore, I will always also ignore my GL balance just to check it. So I'll post my inventory things to reset my inventory. I'll post my VAT opening, and I will reverse my reverse charts, so it will go back to 0 like this. And I'll just need to post my vendor. The only thing I haven't posted is the opening balance. So now I've posted all my different entries, and I could go and check all the different entries everywhere to see that it's correct. And I can check here that my chart of accounts go to 0, meaning I'm happy as for now. I will now post my final journal, my general journal, my opening journal here. So everything is now posted. So here I can see all my different balance, and I'll start by reconciling my items in my inventory value list on that opening date. And I can preview that, and I can save that somewhere on the screen if 35,000 on my finished good, my raw materials in here having 116,000, my resale 129,630, my semi-finished good on 37,000, and my total of 419,000. So this is all my opening on the inventory. I can control them with the lines up here, and they seem to fit correctly. Likewise, I would like to reconcile and the reason I'm doing this, reconcile my customer and vendors, and the reason I'm doing all of this is because the opening journal is entered manually. So I could have entered whatever numbers I want to there. So I would like to check that everything is correctly here. I will use the report for reconciling here. I can see that my customer ledger entry and my GL entry on the customers equals, and there's no difference. So that's very nice. I could look at my bank accounts to reconcile those into my balance, and I can see here that the balance from the bank account ledger entry should be 2,296,344, and on the second bank, if I'm looking at that as well, in here, I could see it should be 135,000 in the local currency, 274, and I can see those amounts here should fit to my bank accounts that they're doing. And the last thing is my VAT I like to reconcile, and I'll do that from my VAT statement. And in my VAT statement, I have my preview, so I can preview all my open VAT entries. I can see my sales VAT should be 30,366, my acquisition tax 126.84, and my total purchase in here, my deductions 8,125, and I can reconcile those figures into my chart of accounts here in the VAT section. So everything is correct, and I can open my Business Central and start working.